It is a genuine honour to be able to speak here today, and as Andrew hinted, my connection to Rotary is a very, very strong one. Having said that, this is only my second ever Rotary lunch. Now let me explain. The first and last time I was at a Rotary lunch was when I was at the Rotary Club of Downtown in Auckland, and I was there to thank that particular club for sponsoring me to go to Ryla. And back in 1991 I went to an amazing Ryla conference and met my wife at that conference. And we've produced 3 outstanding, good-looking, smart children. So I can actually say thank you to Rotary. I think there's a potential line of business there for matchmaking or spotters fees or something. I'm not sure who should send the invoice, whether you should send a spotters fee to me or whether I should send you an invoice for the upkeep of 3 children. But nonetheless, my experience at Ryla was a fantastic one. So it is genuinely a real honour to be able to speak here today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk very briefly, if I can just scroll through, talk a little bit about who I am, and then I'll talk a little bit about Rightway and some of the experiences we've had. First and foremost, I am an accountant, so if you need me to be the butt of all your jokes, that's fine, I'm used to them, I've probably heard them all. What I would say is, have we got any other accountants here from public practice? We've got quite a few? Too many? Okay. So you're really the competition, aren't you? And so when I'm speaking, if you've got any questions at the end, I might sort of fake some deafness. I actually do have, my left ear is blocked up with a little cold, so I think if I hear from any of the accountants, it'll be the left ear that I can't quite hear you. But I am an accountant, and I've always loved the world of business. I've had some really cool roles. I've had some challenging times and some really challenging roles. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in the bio was that at one point when I was at Air New Zealand, Sir John Graham came and asked me if I would go and run a charity in Auckland, and I said, Sir John, you're an amazing man and you are also very hard to turn down. But look, I'll be honest, I've got a young family, I've got a really good role at Air New Zealand, I live in Auckland, so big house prices, etc., I've got to pay the mortgage, but I'm interested. Long story short, no, I went and did that and went and worked for that charity for a time. And through my career, I guess I've had some really challenging experiences. The Air New Zealand experience back when the airline was recapitalised by the government in 2002 was a pretty challenging time after, many of you will remember the demise of Ansett. That was an incredible experience. Going back into the Nike days, I think really through good fortune I was double promoted and found myself as a CFO of a pretty big company with a big brand, with a lot of people at a very young age, and so I had to learn very, very quickly. But nothing, I think, prepared me for running a business like Rightway and building a business at speed. And so what I want to do today is really talk a little bit about the challenges that we've faced just in the last 4 years and give a bit of an understanding to those in the room who are interested, particularly in businesses that are trying to move at speed. And I often sympathise, in fact I saw him in the Corrie Lounge the other day, sympathise with Rod Drury from Xero, as he constantly explains to the business media, to the public of New Zealand, about why he's gone and raised a big bunch of money and how by spending that money to grow faster, he is going to incur a loss as he grows the business at quite a quick rate. And I think there is in many ways still a lack of understanding of the dynamics that come into play for a business that is setting itself up to grow very, very quickly. And so hopefully today I've got a few home truths, and can, some of the lessons can be of use to others who are maybe looking at it. See, we live in a world that is changing very, very quickly, as we all know. I look at what my teenage children do with their technology, and I think I'm reasonably tech savvy, and I'm always blown away by what kids can do, let alone the tiny little kids and what they're doing with technology. We're seeing the rise of drones, we're seeing the rise of all sorts of incredible technology. And so what that's saying is the world's moving fast. And so for New Zealand businesses to succeed, they also need to move faster, otherwise they'll just be taken over by their competitors. And so to be able to grow a business and do it at speed is a skill set that I think as New Zealand business owners and managers, we need to know how to do that, because it is fundamentally quite a different dynamic to a more organic sort of settings for a business. So let me rip into it. I don't want to bore you for too long. I'm aware I'll get a bell otherwise. So let me talk through some of the home truths. So first of all, I'm going to share, these are the lessons that we've had, and then I'll talk about some of the tips that I would give for anybody that is in a position of influencing businesses. So the first one is delay the gratification. And I don't think personally that we did this one very well. When we set up Right Way 4 years ago, there were 4 of us that kicked it off. One of the 4 is one of the 2 co-founders of Xero. We knew that we could build a business. It is an accounting business, but it's set up in quite a different way. We knew that we could do it and we could build it at speed if we did things properly. But first of all, we said, let's keep it really lean and mean. So we wandered down to Warehouse Stationery and we bought 4 flat pack desks, threw them on one of the other guys' utes, set up a little office, spent all day. It must have been the most expensive desks that you could ever create, because all 4 of us weren't billing out time. So we were out there, and I'm terrible with a screwdriver and a hammer and things, especially with the instructions that you get from Warehouse Stationery. Anyway, we put these 4 flat pack desks, and then we got into it. And as Andrew said, we've got 50 odd staff. In fact, I think we'll be at 60 by the end of the month, and we're planning on doubling that again this year, and continuing that growth for a while. But what we didn't do well was delay the gratification. So the lifestyle, and I'll talk about my own experience, the lifestyle's just carried on the same old way. So if we had Sky Sport, we had Sky Sport. If we, wanted to go out for dinner, we went out for dinner. What I would say to anybody that wants to build a business and grow it quickly is go and eat at mum's. Go and spend as little as you can and keep the business as lean and mean as you possibly can, potentially for years. Now, mum may get sick of that, but keep it super lean. So delay the gratification. The second one is total exhaustion. Now, I don't know if you can tell in this light, but I've actually got big bags under my eyes. Nothing tests you more than growing a business. In fact, I often say, running a business, for all of those of you who, many of you have run businesses, running a business is hard. Growing a business is even harder, and growing a business at speed is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in the world of business. So it does absolutely take every ounce of your being. Physically, mentally, you name it. It really takes it out of you. So the learning for us has been, make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep where you can, because you will be absolutely knackered. It is the ultimate test of everything. So it tested our people, it's tested our processes, it's tested our culture. And when you're growing so fast, everything is constantly being changed. The process that worked when you had 10 staff doesn't work when you have 20, doesn't work when you have 50, etc. So everything's changing. It naturally creates larger risks. There's more people that you've employed. We actually as a business don't hold debt, so we don't have that issue, but it just creates larger risks. There's more contracts, more suppliers, more everything. So if you get it wrong, it's a bigger mess at the end. And so that is obviously something that as you grow, you've got to be aware of. It increases the complexity. Now, the analogy I give here is if you were a 5-year-old and you were doing maths, it would be quite complex for you when you start off as a 5-year-old doing maths at school. And if you're a 17-year-old doing maths at school, it's probably just as complex as when you were 5. But you grow and you handle that increased level of complexity. So when we started with 4 flat pack desks, we didn't have a lot of process management going on. It was all pretty simple. With 50 of us now, it is obviously a much more complex business. And that complexity is growing at a very fast rate. So that's been a real learning for us. As you grow, you have this interesting issue of handling the talent within your organisation. So we've gone from a situation where there were 4 of us, we employed our first employee very, very quickly, and we all knew what each other was doing, and we all sort of had a pretty flat structure. I think I was nominated as CEO at the beginning, but it didn't really mean anything. It was just, every man or woman for themselves, really. But then over time, we had to change that structure. So we've now got a situation where the Xero co-founder, he doesn't actually work for a living. He spends all his time skiing these days. But he chairs the board. I report to him. One of the other 4 reports to me, and then the 4th actually reports to him. It's just the way the structure's gone. And they've always handled that with real aplomb. But it does demand better talent. And you have to have some very honest conversations with people. We're going to get to a point, probably in the near future, where we will outgrow some of our leadership. And we have to make some honest calls on that. And they're aware of that. And in many cases, actually, they're quite happy to hand over to somebody else and take a different role. But you do need to be quite ruthless about your talent. Can I say that here? You're allowed to say, you can? I actually asked, I'm speaking at a school next week and I'm delivering exactly the same presentation, so I asked the teacher whether I was allowed to use that word. He said it's probably not a word that, it's a word that they would have probably heard before. So I would actually say that if you think it's going to cost a lot of money, just double that figure. It always costs money to build a business, and that's why you need to raise significant capital to grow the business and to be able to grow it quickly. Every time we look ahead for the next 12 months, we know, okay, it's going to cost us X amount. In fact, at the moment, if anybody's interested, there is a little advertorial here. We are raising capital. So see me afterwards, or if you're interested. We're doing a significant capital raise because we don't want to have debt. We just want to use good capital and grow this business quickly. But it costs a lot of dough. So here's some things that we think you need to do well. So I had this slide actually used to say stay out of the weeds. I actually don't know on reflection whether that's entirely accurate. There are times that you need to go down into a bit of detail and be down in the weeds and understand exactly what's happening in some detailed areas and have the skill and the tenacity to drill into something that doesn't look right. But you also need to be like the hawk that flies out over the countryside that we all see around here and be able to see things from a perspective. So to be able to make sure that you're not always down in the weeds, that you're gliding above things and you can see the trends, you can see what's moving. But if you do spot a mouse or a worm, I don't think hawks get worms, do they? Probably get a mouse. You can dive down in and grab it. So that's the challenge, I think, is running a business like this. You need to build an amazing leadership group. Obviously, as CEO, I've got there's a tremendous amount of responsibility on my shoulders, but the challenge for me is to continue to make sure that I've got people around me that have got really good skills in a range of areas, whether it be marketing and sales and operations management, whatever it is. That is absolutely critical. Somebody said the other day, always when you're in a business setting, always look around and make sure you're not the smartest guy in the room. Because you've got a problem if you are the smartest guy in the room. You should always make sure you've got smarter guys and girls around you on the team. This one is something I personally really passionately believe in. I'm a big delegator, so I literally allocate all of the responsibilities for running the business down to my senior team, and then I work with them as needed. So the challenge here, I guess, is to get out of people's way, is to set very clear expectations and understanding, keep them accountable for those results, help remove some roadblocks if you've got them, but otherwise continue to provide leadership and let them be the successful ones. And so the sign, I guess, for me of when I'm doing that well is when I feel like there's not a lot to do. That's actually a good thing. And so for me personally, this has been something that I would highly recommend for people to be successful, is to make sure you delegate, provide strong leadership, provide good management, and then get out of the way. I won't worry too much about this, but basically as you grow, obviously your processes do come in for huge challenges, so continue to flex and be open-minded about changing your processes. This bit of a given, I suppose, for an accountant, but whether you're an accountant or not, you always need to be on top of your numbers. That's the one thing that will trip you up every time. So be across all the key numbers. We measure, in Rightway, we measure a number of things: our cost of acquiring a customer, our lifetime value of a customer, etc. We look at a number of different measures perhaps than what other accounting firms would, but we're very much across them and we know what's happening. This one, I'm very passionate about building a culture. For us to have a company that grows fast and doesn't fall apart, we need to have people that really enjoy being part of the company, that know that their career has opportunities to grow and develop, that we've got each other's backs. And to do that means that when you're bringing people into the organisation, they are going to fit into your culture. And we have a particular culture, other businesses will have another one. But for us to make sure that we've got the right culture, and I'll talk about that in a second, we really have to be very ruthless on the people we bring in. So if somebody's got the right skills, but we don't think they'll fit the culture, we won't hire them. Whereas sometimes we will go the other way. We'll bring somebody on who's got the culture and they've got the attitude, but actually they need a bit of work on the skills. We'd rather take that approach. So culture is the glue. When everything else is going crazy, that's the thing that keeps it all stuck together. And the best analogy that I can give of a business growing at speed is a little bit like, and it's sort of lost its currency a bit now, but the America's Cup catamarans. When you sail out here in Wellington Harbour on a big monohull yacht, and you're cruising along, even with the spinnaker up, it's kind of nice plain sailing. And you compare that to being on a yacht with very little boat on the water and lots of sail and lots of speed. Anything can break at any time. And the reality is, in a business, we need our culture to keep everything held together, because we are moving at speed and something can break. And when it breaks, it can flip the boat. This is a challenge that I think just about every business owner in New Zealand has. So when you start off in business, often the sales function's left up to you as the owner. If you want to grow a business, whether you grow it at speed or not, you have to be able to figure out how to scale that sales function. Now, a lot of people now are starting to look at online and selling through the internet, etc. Or it could be that you've got a more traditional sales process with people out there, with driving around in cars or whatever. But you need to think through how that's going to work. And that's been one of the challenges when we first started, because we wanted to grow quickly, obviously have to win a lot of customers, so we had to be able to work out how to scale our sales function. And that is something you need to try and work out at the beginning, not when you're sort of 3 or 4 years into it, because you may not be able to scale what you've already got. So finally, in our business, we make mistakes. We probably make them every day. What we try and do is fix those mistakes quite quickly and then move on. We don't spend a lot of time feeling sorry for ourselves, over-analysing things. We've got a cultural value that we call test and amend. So we give stuff a go, we try it out. That's how we're going to find out that something works or it doesn't work. But where we stuff up, we fix it and we move on. We move on quickly. And that's it. Thank you very much. Questions? It's a very good question. I live in Martinborough. I'm one of those Aucklanders that saw the light. I moved to Wellington with that National Party role. Very quickly, my wife said, Dad, before he died, was really big on the wines of Martinborough. Can we go and check it out? So we did, and it was a bit fatal. We ended up buying over there, and so we're still there. We've got an office here in Wellington. Our head office, we say it's Martinborough. In reality, it's probably going to be Wellington. And we have offices from Auckland literally down through to Invercargill, and now one in Sydney. Just to pick up your point about innovation in Wellington, and I say this in front of Aucklanders, and I definitely say it in front of Wellingtonians. Wellington is the coolest city to do business in. And that's coming from an Aucklander. Now, Auckland's got a great harbour, but it's got a terrible city, as in a CBD. And it's hard to get to, and the traffic's terrible. Wellington is accessible, it's easy to get around, and it has, through successive mayors and leadership, we've got a very innovative culture going on here in Wellington. And I think, the likes of Xero being based here, what they've done is they've essentially shown many other companies that it is possible to be a global player, and to be strong on technology and to start and base the business here in Wellington. So I'd love to see 2 or 3 more Xeros. We're not in the tech business, but ideally a few more tech companies here in Wellington would be great. Yeah, it's a very good question. When I say that we want, one common culture, we've got a number of people from a number of different nationalities in the company. So actually we've got quite a diverse team. We've got probably 5 or 6 people from Indian descent, for example. The way I've described culture is, would I be happy to share a minivan ride to Auckland with these guys? And we've done that. We had one situation where it was fogged in Wellington. We had to be at a conference in Auckland. About 8 of the team, I think Sally might have been on that minivan. They had a great time. They all enjoyed each other's company, stuck in a minivan, driving up through this, central North Island. That, to me, is when you define culture. Where people come from, what they look like, it's irrelevant. That's a very good question. We've got half an hour. No, it's a very good... Yeah, 30 seconds, thanks, President Kerry. So the key difference for us is we have the role that Sally is in is a role that we call a regional partner. Now, in any other accounting professional services firm, typically what happens, you've got partners at the top, managers, a whole bunch of team that sort of do the work. What happens is these partners in these professional services firms get caught up with managing managers, managing staff, managing workflow, technical reviews, etc. They all want to spend more time with their customers and don't. Our point of difference is that these roles are free of all of that, and they simply are there to win a customer and then look after that customer. They have no staff responsibility, no technical review. So of course it's challenging some of the norms. I sit on the Chartered Accountant Australia and New Zealand Public Practice Committee, and I'm often getting comments from some of the other people on that group about how do you do this and how do you do that, and we have built a new model, and I guess time will tell as to whether that's successful or not.
And finally,
Peter, I'll ask. I presume the question's around that second piece. I think at the end of the day, all companies should think like that. I agree, but I know when we are employing people, I had one of the ladies the other day said, brand new, she started literally last week. You're allowed to keep the radio on. Wow, we're not allowed to keep the radio on. So just little things like that, that there are in a number of accounting firms, and typically we're competing against some of the smaller practices, not the big guys. There is a lot of tradition and not a lot of change, and particularly if you're a young person coming along, we need to have commercially minded graduates coming out of university thinking accounting is the best career because it's fun, it's innovative, and it touches on all aspects of business, not just numbers.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you formally. Thanks very much.